My 20s was a crazy period of my life, and admittedly, it was challenging. Let's just say I was glad to turn 30, and when this happened, an internal shift also happened within me. It was like my soul was saying, girl, new decade, new you. Hey there, welcome or welcome back. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 7 mindset shifts that I went through from my 20s to now being 30. So let's get to it. During my 20s, I was still discovering who I am, and this meant that my interests and hobbies changed frequently. This made it difficult to understand who I was and what I wanted from life, and that meant that setting goals was really tricky because it just intimidated me because I felt like I couldn't commit to things in my life. Nowadays, I have a much better understanding of who I am as a person and what my priorities are. This means I'm now able to set clearer goals, break them down, and have clear action plans in place to achieve the things that I want to achieve. After all, it's really hard to aim when you don't know what you're aiming for. And in my 20s, I had no idea what I was trying to aim for. So at one point, I wanted to quit my corporate job and become a fashion influencer on Instagram. Then later down the track, I wanted to travel overseas and work in London. And then a couple of months after that, I wanted to buy a dog, which is a huge commitment. Then I thought, it'd be great if I could buy my first house. And then a few months after that, I was like, actually, I don't want to be tied down by a mortgage. So you get the drift. I did not know who I was or what I wanted from life. Speaking of goals, I now don't like to share the specific details of my goals so publicly. So I know I've got a YouTube platform and I talk a bit about the things on a high level of what I want to do. But for example, I won't share like the specific figure of salary that I'm trying to achieve, or the exact date that I want to buy a house by, or the subscriber number that I'm trying to hit on my YouTube channel by what date. So those kind of specifics I will keep to myself because I just find it a lot better to hold that sacred space for me to be able to learn, fail, make mistakes without the judgment of other people, and just to explore my own potential more privately. Because the more you open up your life to others, the more it opens up judgment. And sometimes, family and friends even, they don't intentionally mean to put you down, but they might be held back by their own limiting beliefs or their own past experiences. And even a comment about any of my goals could potentially sway me and create some self-doubt in me. So I'd rather keep some of those things private for now. I can now, with much more confidence, say what I want to achieve in terms of goals in areas like my career, my relationships, and my health. Also, when it comes to creating practical plans for helping me achieve those things, I'm a lot more realistic about what's feasible to implement in my life. Some of the simple things that I do day to day to get me closer to my goals is blocking out short segments of time to work on the things that I want to work on, breaking down larger goals into smaller, more achievable milestones, making time to celebrate the small wins. So not always just focusing on what's next, but stopping, pausing, and reflecting on how far I've come already. And expanding my thinking of what's possible. So if you surround yourself with the same people doing the similar things, I don't think it's a very good way of letting you see what's actually possible for you to achieve in the world. So the way I do this is by reading lots of books, listening to some of my favorite podcasts, and watching YouTube videos, just expanding my understanding of what's possible in this world. The key thing to remember here is taking small actions every day is a lot more impactful than working on something once a month for a few hours. Let's be real, we all do this, but I definitely noticed that I did this more in my 20s than I do now. The biggest thing that's helped me is getting off social media. I posted a video about that recently. If you haven't checked it out, you can check it out over here. The other thing that's really helped me is prioritizing my self-care. I've also talked more about these things here and here. As I age, I realized that no two people are exactly the same. No two people have exactly the same life circumstances, and everyone is on a different life path. Basically, we all have different values, strengths, flaws, insecurities, memories, upbringing and relationship circles. I've also come to realize that you never know what other people are going through. It's really wrong to make a judgment about someone else based on what they choose to show you about their life on the outside. And comparing yourself to other people puts you in the energy where you're so much more focused on what's happening outside of you and things that are generally beyond your control, which is basically energy drainers and a time waster. So my advice is to turn inward and focus on your own feelings, your thoughts and emotions, focus on bettering yourself and going after the things that you want and going after the life that you want to create, rather than looking outside of you and looking at what everyone else is doing. So in my 20s, I went through a very woo-woo spiritual phase where I really believed that everything happens for a reason and good things will come to me in time when it's my turn. I found I was sitting down waiting for the next good thing to happen a lot more. So I'd tell myself, maybe after this cycle ends, or maybe when I'm a little older and I've had more experience and my mindset's a little bit different, or I've learned the lessons that I'm meant to learn, maybe that's when the good thing will come to me. Or maybe when I am internally ready to receive these things, whatever that means. And don't get me wrong, I still do believe things happen for a reason to some extent, but I am a lot more proactive in going after the things that I want. I am a spiritual person, just in a more logical, practical way, if that makes sense. So basically I do 3 things. I set my intention for what I want. I create an action plan to co-create whatever I want to manifest with the universe, and then I take action and just go after what I want. This reminds me of that quote that says, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." Boom. So during my 20s, I used to be more narrow-minded about certain things. Because self-discovery for me took so much time and energy, once I discovered that I liked or didn't like something, or I saw my life unfolding in a particular direction, I thought that was it. The biggest example I can think of is during my early to mid-20s, I had a period where I felt like I did not want children at all for the rest of my life. That was the decision that I made. But since turning 30, a lot has changed in my life, and now I can see myself considering it. Even though I'm not ready right now, I can see it being a possibility in the next few years. The other thing is I used to be someone that had to go out every weekend to do really exciting things and, explore Melbourne City and all of that. Although I still really like exploring my own city, I'm totally fine now with having quiet nights in on the weekend and just relaxing and chilling. My focus is a lot more to rest and recharge and make sure I have enough energy to work on my goals rather than worrying about FOMO. I've seen my beliefs and mindset go through quite a few changes, and so I'm a lot more open to my opinions changing in life as my priorities shift. After all, change is the only constant, right? I've totally come to realize how powerful my mind can actually be. My thoughts completely trigger my emotions. I think we all have the power to create our own reality, and our thoughts play a huge part in this. If we give into our negative thoughts frequently, we're basically being controlled by our mind. Now that I'm older, I realize more and more every day that I'm actually in the driver's seat of my own life. I can take action towards the things I want to do, and I can choose how I want to show up for myself. I can also choose how I want to speak to myself. My thoughts used to be like negative on autopilot, but now I feel like I've reached this new level of consciousness where I can take a step back and realize, wow, that was a little bit mean, or that was a bit unfair to say to yourself. I'm also a lot better at reframing my thoughts to show myself more kindness, or reframing challenging situations. I struggled a lot with negative thinking in my early 20s, and this really contributed to my lack of self-confidence and the amount of self-doubt that I had. And I struggled so much with this that I decided to become a health coach, and this is what I support my clients with. So I help my clients shift their self-talk from critical to compassionate. If you're interested to find out a bit more about what I do, just check out the description box below. Okay, not saying anything, but the amount of times where I've felt a lot of fear or nerves about doing something and I've done it anyway and just worked outside my comfort zone and it has paid off, I think I've lost count. I'm constantly pushing my limits and surprising myself, really. I've done this both at work and in my personal life. I have also learned that sometimes you just need to fake it till you make it. And you know what the secret is? Everybody does this at some point. Even the people with really senior job titles or seem to have many years of experience in whatever they're doing, at some point everyone fakes it until they make it. And then that's how they learn. The most important thing is to not overthink things, push past that initial fear stage and just go for it and do the thing. In my day job, I've done this when it comes to facilitating workshops, doing presentations and running team meetings. And in my personal life, I have pushed past my fear when it came to launching my coaching business, taking on my first few clients, and of course, hitting publish on these YouTube videos. In psychology, there's a term called the spotlight effect, and this is basically when we overestimate how much other people pay attention to us in certain situations. We tend to think that the world revolves around us, but the reality is everyone's got so much going on in their lives that most of the time they're more focused and worried about themselves than they are worried about you. But as human beings, it's really normal to want to belong, to not be alone or feel like an outcast. But sometimes this means that we care way too much about what other people think. The people around you may temporarily have opinions about who you are and how you live your life, but the reality is that no matter who you are or what you do, that is always going to happen. You're never going to please every person. You could try and be super, super nice to everyone and they could say that you're being fake and overly polite and that they don't trust you. You could be really logical and analytical and people could say that you're really stubborn and narrow-minded. You can be really spiritual, woo-woo, intuitive, in tune with your feelings, and people will say that you're airy-fairy. So basically, there's no winning in this. So my goal now that I'm older is to be as authentically myself as possible, and I really trust that in that process, I'm going to attract the right people in my life. And the people in my life don't have to agree with my decisions and they don't even have to understand my choices. But as long as they are respectful and supportive of me, that's the main thing that I ask for. Because in the end of the day, I want to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you go girl, I'm proud of you. And as I get older, I really want to be able to tell myself that I gave it my all to live my best life. So if you're sitting there stressing about what your family, what your colleagues, what your friends will think, just stop and just go after what you want. Speaking of living life to the fullest, stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to be talking to you about the things that I think might be keeping you stuck or unhappy in your life. I'll also share some tips and tricks on how to combat these things. So there you have it. 7 mindset shifts that I've made as I gradually ease into the next decade of my life. Thanks so much for stopping by. And remember guys, well-being first, always. I will love you and leave you here, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.